Hi there, I'm Claudia Friedlander. Today I'd like to talk about the kinds of movements that singers engage in when performing an aria, especially when they're performing an aria in the context of an audition or if they're recording an audition video. I watch a lot of audition videos, and there are some things that typically come up that I think are issues that singers can pretty easily resolve. So this video is going to be the first in a series that addresses these common issues that singers face. So how much movement is appropriate or desirable for presenting an aria? I think that that's going to differ depending on the situation, on the singer, and the aria that they're presenting. But I think we can talk about the categories of movement that are great, that really help you to define your character and tell your story. And then there are other categories of movement that more detract than contribute to your performance. I think it's important for you to come up with a vocabulary of body language for all of the characters that you present in arias and auditions. This is the kind of work that you can do well in advance of presenting your aria. If you know how your character stands, if you know what their body language is like, if you know things like, do they want to draw attention to themselves, or do they prefer to just kind of hide away? How do their bodies react in situations? Think about all of these things. Not even necessarily in relation to the aria that you're performing. And then examine your texts and see, how do you think your character is going to move? Are they reacting to something that's just happened? Are they reacting to something that another character has said? When you perform an audition, you're not going to have those other characters there, but if you know where they are and what they just said and how it is that you're going to react to what it is that they just said, then that's going to really help you decide on the movements that you want to engage in. Maybe you're just reacting to a thought or a fear that you had in your own head about what might happen next. But if you can really just explore your texts and figure out how do you think your character is going to move in these moments, then you're going to have a really strong foundation for presenting your character physically, dramatically, once it comes time to audition. In fact, if you do that and nothing else, you'll probably present a very compelling dramatic interpretation. The problem is that singers usually don't just do that and nothing else. So what I want to talk about next are the different categories of movement that don't necessarily come from the character that can encroach upon your performance in an audition. One of the interesting challenges for incorporating movement in the performance of an aria is the fact that when we sing, our phrases tend to unfold much more slowly than when we speak. It's going to take a lot longer to say something, especially if it's a foreign language text in very heightened language, than it would take to say the same thing in my colloquial native language. And even when phrases are moving fast, even when there's a fast tempo, it's still probably going to take longer than it would just to say it. And so we tend to slow down our gestures to go with the pace of what it is that we're saying, but then that's going to end up looking kind of silly. For example, the beginning of Fiordaligi's aria Come Scoglio in Così fan tutte by Mozart, she sings Te melodi, sortite fuori di questo loco. She's telling these guys to get out of her house. Well, it doesn't take nearly as long to just say, get out of my house, right? Then it says, sortite fuori di questo loco is going to take longer. Now, the instinctive thing for me to do is to indicate the way out and point. But if I do that in slow motion, it's going to be, sortite fuori di questo loco. And we don't move like that. So it's okay to move fast, move the same way that you would make the same gesture if you were just having a normal conversation, even though it's going to take you a little bit longer to sing and communicate the phrase that you are singing. Another challenge for incorporating movement into the presentation of an aria has to do with overall timing. When we're just having a normal conversation, our thoughts unfold through words and gestures in a way that's pretty organic. It takes as long to say what we're saying as it takes, and we just move spontaneously along with that without really thinking too much about what our faces are doing, what our arms are doing, what our body language is doing. But when you perform in an opera, pretty much all of the timing has been predetermined by the composer. You're going to have some flexibility, but for the most part, it has been ordained when a phrase is supposed to start, how long it's going to take to unfold, when it needs to end. And you need to work all of this out so that you can always be in sync with your conductor and the other performers. So how do we fit movements in with that? Well, take a moment to consider the timing of organic movement when we're just having conversations. We generally make movements and register facial expressions just before we say something. Today, when you're just walking around talking to people, watch them and you'll see that this is true. We don't have a facial expression happen simultaneously with what we're saying. We don't make the gesture simultaneous. It's just before, because we have this impulse to express and it sort of moves through our body and then it takes time to unfold through our voice. For example, if I'm going to say, get out of here, right? I'm going to register my reaction on my face and gesture just before I say it. So I've seen these people come into my house and I react, get out of here. That was a little bit slowed down, but I'll do it in a more organic timing again. Get out of here. Now, what will often happen when you're singing, if you don't really think this through, is that you might have your facial expression and your gesture register simultaneously with what it is that you're saying. Get out of here. It's hard for me to do when I'm speaking. I'm still a little bit ahead of time. Get out of here. That's not the most egregious thing that you can do, but you can see how it doesn't look quite as genuine and spontaneous as when the movement and facial expression precede what I'm going to say. More often, I will see singers register a facial expression and a gesture that looks like it's in reaction to what they just said. Get out of here. That's a slight exaggeration. But if you don't think about these things and plan them in advance, then you're going to find that your instinct might be to react simultaneous with what you're saying, or when you're done saying it, and it's not going to read as incisive, as organic to what you're saying, is if you can train yourself to register your facial expressions and engage in your movements that go with the phrase you're going to express just before you say it, just before you sing it. I often encourage singers to watch videos of arias with the sound turned off. See if you can find some videos of arias and watch the singer. See if you can notice what they're doing with their face, what they're doing with their body. Is it really communicating something? Are there movements or facial expressions that seem to detract from what they're singing or are extraneous? Are there other movements that seem to have more to do with the way that they're physicalizing their technique? Do they seem like they're just waving their arms around to no purpose, like a crazy person? You're going to see a lot of movement that really helps expression, and you're going to see a lot of movement that doesn't really add anything or may even detract from the performance. Singing is movement. Singing is continuous movement. And so the temptation can be to engage in continuous movement while you're singing. But your body language and your facial expressions still needs to express at key moments what the character would be doing to express the situation that they're in and the story that they're telling. If you engage in continuous movement that has something to do with your technique, I don't know, maybe you're in the habit of moving your arms in a way that encourages steady airflow. Well, that can really help you in the practice room. But the character doesn't know that they're singing, and that continuous arm movement is going to therefore be expressing something that's happening for you, the singer, but isn't happening for them, and it's going to distract from what it is that they're trying to say. Sometimes I see singers shift their weight side to side, and that might be great for feeling like you're staying grounded but dynamic and keeping your pelvis loose, keeping your breathing free. Sometimes I see singers just engage in the sort of subtle side-to-side movement of the neck, and that might feel great. You know that your neck is staying loose and your throat's staying really relaxed. But again, this is movement that has more to do with your technique and what you, the singer, are experiencing. And if you really want to commit to your character and the story that they're telling, you need to invest all of your physical movement and energy into the way that they would be moving, not into what's happening for you as the singer. Singers are always trying to improve their presentation and thinking about, what's really going to set me apart from the other singers when I audition. I can tell you, as somebody who reviews auditions, that this is a really big one for me. When I see a singer who is very dramatically committed, whose every movement, every facial expression expresses what the text is saying and gives me a really clear definition of their character and helps to tell the story, when their movements are so organically intertwined with what it is that they're singing, that I almost have the illusion that they're not singing, that they're really just experiencing and talking about the content of the aria, that draws me in and it elevates their performance. So take some time to take inventory of, how do you prepare your movement for your auditions? How much of your movement is very precisely coming from what the character is experiencing? How much of your movement might be expressing your technique? How much of it might be habitual things that you've just gotten used to doing to keeping yourself loose when you practice? And if you can refine your presentations so that everything you do with your face, with your body, with your physical expression is organically informed by what it is that you're saying, you're going to take things to the next level. Thank you for joining me.
Aus alten Märchen winkt es hervor mit weißer Hand,